Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Help I'm a Camera Nerd. I'm half of your hosts, Anderson. The other half is
I am Help I'm a Nerd. My name's Mark. do you like my podcast voice?
yeah. Help I'm a nerd. And I'm Films by AW is my YouTube name. And welcome back. This week we are going to talk about why we make short films, or why you should make short films. That'll be a more catchy title for YouTube, won't it?
Yeah.
Mark. So we're gonna go into it. What is a short film, and why should you make one?
Ooh. Well, a short film is like a long film, but shorter. And you should make one. No, really, a short film is essentially, it is like a long film, but shorter. And the reason most people make them
Yeah.
is to learn how to make films, right? Because it costs a lot of money to make a feature film. Not many people can, well, the vast majority of people can't afford that. So you make short films in order to learn the craft of filmmaking. And, you know, I'm a big believer. I say this to a lot of people. I love it when people tell me they want to make a short film. Doesn't matter like what their background is. I love it because making a short film, it's like you get this buzz, right, from making it. It's this weird feeling that I've never got from anything else. And it's just like, it's having an idea and it just being in your head. And then you get to the end of this long process that's like, is weirdly long and, you know, for a short film. And you're like, this came from out of my head. A lot of the time, if you wrote the script, maybe you didn't write the script, but even saw the vision, you know, you saw the vision for it as a director and you were, you know, you saw that through to the final product, the final film. And you get to the end of it and it's like, there's this weird anticlimax that you get after like a shoot is done where you're like, it's like you're so tired and you've done it. All the hard work has come to this one point, and you're like, "Oh, it's done now. I've been working for so long to this point." And then you go into post production, and you start on that journey, and you finally get to the end of you get this film at the end of it, and you know maybe you submit it to festivals, and you get to go to a festival and watch other people see it, and it's just like this weird feeling that I can't describe. That it's like it's terrifying, it's thrilling. It's something that I continue to have to do. It's like an itch that I need to scratch. So even, you know, I just love it that when people tell me they were like, "Oh, I've got an idea for a film," and I'm like, "Great, you should make it. You should go through that process because you learn so much from doing it that isn't necessarily just skills that benefit you as a filmmaker. It's skills that benefit you of just seeing something through." So yeah, that's my answer. That's my long-winded answer. Why did you, you know, first decide you want to make films?
I think you've covered it all. End of the podcast. See you next week, guys. No, no. I mean, you've touched it. You've hit so many points there. You know, why do you want to make films? We all grow up. You know, if you love film, and I imagine if you're watching this podcast, you've watched a film in your life and you like watching them. We've all watched films. We've all experienced that emotion. You know, I always go back to Forrest Gump, and when his mama says, "Forrest, I'm dying," I remember seeing that for the first time and crying my eyes out to my mom because I knew, you know, she was mortal. I'm like, oh no. And, you know, I remember the first time you watch The Matrix and you see Neo doing his crazy 360 slow motion stuff, and you know it's something that no matter who you are in living the modern era, you've watched films and you've enjoyed them, and so how could you not want to? And it always appealed to me to make the stories that I wanted to see, to create a worlds that I could only imagine, or create a story in this world that doesn't exist but then tell something about something I want to be solved, or a mystery that's never been fully uncovered. That's something that's always appealed to me. And that's why I got into making films, because I wanted to explore these worlds, but also entertain people. But not entertain people with just mindless nothingness. There's a time and a place for that, to be fair, but also be like, hey, I've learned something and I enjoyed that. I've gone through a full spectrum of emotions, and I just don't think no other art form comes close, because you make music. Yeah, we need music to make films. You need to take photos. Oh yeah, we're taking 25 photos, 23.98 photos per second. You want to talk about sculpturing? Oh yeah, we have set design that we need. And you want to talk about, theater, drama? Yeah, we need actors to tell those stories. We encompass all of these art forms to make the ultimate art form that replicates what our eyes and brain sees in the world. It is the closest art form to making real life, but in this different reality. Some would say magical, reality, right? I'm not going to go that far, but, and I think that's something, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to want to do. And, since I was 14 years old in media studies class with Mrs. Barnes, thought, wow, I didn't know this would be possible. I want to do this for real. And that's why that's the emotive reason of why I make films. Now, why I make short films, I got a simple answer. In the last podcast, you mentioned about being a director. There's no set path. The only way to be a director is to make films. If you're not making films, you're not a director. If you are making films, you are a director. I think James Cameron said, it was like, when did you decide to be a director? When I started making films, I'm a director. I'm probably butchering that quote, but the idea of that quote is it rings true. There's no director that makes films by being a first AD for a long time and then deciding to be a director, or being a DP and then deciding to be a director. Although I think Wally Pfister did that, and it's a little bit easier. But you only get the opportunity to make things if you've made things. It's this crazy paradox that the only way people will trust you is if you've already done it. And it's like, well, how am I? I don't have an infinite amount of money. How can I want to do this. I haven't done it. How can you tell me? But that's exactly what you have to do, as crazy as that sounds. So short film, as you said before, is the opportunity to make a film, which we've all seen. We've all enjoyed a 2-hour movie, 1.5-hour movie, whatever. Anything over 90 minutes or 70 minutes is a feature film technically. But as you said, it's impossible to make that. And again, to make that, you have to prove you can deliver that, because film encompasses all those other art forms, it's more expensive. So when I say, I need £15,000 to make this short film, people go, whoa, that's the same as a car. How can you possibly need that much money to make it? Or that's a down payment on a house or whatever. That's crazy. And then you go, yeah, but that's a low budget, small scale drama. That Transformers that you're judging me against, because they'll watch your films about, why is it not like that? Well, because that film cost $200 million. Yeah. So a short film is an opportunity for a director to learn and showcase their style, but also to showcase a concept for a feature film or a longer program that they want to make, but they don't have the budget to make it. So they'll make a smaller version of it to showcase to people, yeah, this idea will work, I promise. Look at the short film of it. So now if you like that 10 minutes, 15 minutes, can we make the whole, can you give me $500,000, $2 million, $3 million, $5 million, whatever, to make the whole thing? And that's a lot of the reasons why people make short films. But as an art form, I think it's incredibly underrated, because again, most people don't watch short films. When we turn the television on, we're watching, 1 hour long TV shows or 30-minute TV shows, and feature length films. Most people don't sit down when they get home from work and watch short films. Sadly, or at least in this country and in the U.S. and the U.S. as well. But I think that's the frustrating part about short films. Yeah, you need to do it, but people don't watch them. Yep. Or I should say the wide audience or the general public don't watch it. Yeah. So what a paradox that is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're right. There is no real audience for short film unless there's more now than there was like 10 years ago. There's YouTube
Yeah.
channels now that are dedicated to short films and they get a lot of views. And, there's more festivals than there ever was. You don't need to just get into Cannes or, one of the big ones anymore. There's a lot more
Yeah.
avenues to screen your short film, but it's still a very
Yeah.
specialist platform. And it's still, the vast majority of people. There's this anticlimax almost that when you make a short film and you show it to like your relatives or your friends who don't work in this industry, they're like, cool, cool. And it's like they don't really understand why you've done it. It's almost like, what's why'd you make it? And it's like, oh well, I made it to showcase my ability. And like you said, it's about kind of trying to tell people and let people know that you can understand the discipline and you can have a vision and see it through, and you can deal with a crew and stuff like that. So it is almost like this thing that you put probably more effort than I've put into anything in my life, and
Oh yeah.
it
Oh yeah.
it might not,
Because you have to.
you have to.
Because it's an insane amount of work that
Yeah.
needs to get done. I'll let you finish your point though.
I mean, you're right, it is. It's an insane amount of work, and it's like you just put so much energy into it. And my friends who make films put so much energy into it, and you always want a film to succeed. You always hope at the end of it that it's gonna get a lot of views, or it's gonna get into a big festival. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't, and you carry on. You get on to the next one, or it's a tough one. But it is something that I feel like I still continue to try and do. And short film, there are various levels of short film. There's the bigger budget ones, like you said, where you get thousands of pounds to make it, and there's the ones that you try and make for no money. And maybe it's smaller production and stuff. And I've always tried to make short films. From uni onwards, I've always tried to keep making stuff. And sometimes it's successful, sometimes it isn't. Sometimes I hate the film when it's done, and then a few years down the line I look back and I'm like, I like what I was trying to do there. It was like it almost becomes something else, like this film that you didn't intend, but still it's become something different, and that's okay. And I think that's the thing to remember about short film, right? It's almost like it's a living, breathing thing, and it will develop and it will change, and it can do that. You don't necessarily, and that happens on big feature films as well. Like they might still be writing the script as they're shooting it, or they'll shoot multiple endings, and it's like it changes, it adapts, it becomes something different because maybe what you intended wasn't working and you needed to change it. And that's what being a director is. I think it's about being able to adapt to that and kind of, or trying to see it through to what you originally intended, and trying to get that original vision and make it what you saw to begin with. And it is a difficult thing, and I don't know about you, but I feel like you never stop learning when you're making films. You never stop learning. Every time you learn something new, and something different is a problem, and you learn to deal with that. And it's about overcoming problems a lot of the time. And I always remember back to like my film Happy Anniversary, technically all these things going wrong, and as a director, the Alexa wouldn't balance on the gimbal. Now, I could take the Alexa off and I could shoot that static, or I could shoot it on a track, but that wasn't what I intended. And I had this vision for this shot, watching them dance, twirling around with them, and the camera being part of the dance. The whole film relied on that. That was the moment that you were with the actors. And it's like, well, what's more important directing wise? That I get the shot I intended and that I get the feeling that I intended, or that I give up and I shoot it on the better camera and, I just make sacrifices. So I put a little A7S on that gimbal and I shot the most beautiful shot I could get, twirling around the actors. And that was, as a director, you have to make calls like that sometimes. Sometimes you have to make sacrifices, and sometimes you got to stick with it and see it through and try and get what you intended, because that's what you intended, and there was a reason that you intended that. And it's difficult, and it's enjoyable, all at the same time.
You know, man, that's a great anecdote there, because again, that's directing. I think because of the culture we are in now, especially around equipment, and look, are we helping that? Probably not with our help. I'm a camera nerd podcast, but that's what filmmaking is. You problem solve. I always refer back to the week we shot the NBA 8 years ago, as I've never been up to that point more creative and coming up with solutions. You've already written your script, you already storyboarded it, you know what the story is, but then some things happen on set and you have to make solutions. And I'm telling you, if you were able to make a film of that scale every 6 months, oh my gosh, you'd be this incredible creative force, because you're constantly problem solving, because you're never going to get 100% of your vision. You know, I think even unless you're Chris Nolan, maybe Chris Nolan does, but besides Chris Nolan, you know, it's very difficult, or Spielberg, it's very difficult to get 100% of your vision. So you're constantly having this balance of budget, time, vision.
Mm-hmm.
And you're trying to get that balance perfectly in the middle, but you know, often don't. I know one big problem I've always had, and it kind of hinders me a little bit now, is my films are always bigger scale. I try and write smaller stories, but it's very, I always write the films I want to see, you know, whether it's in the bus in the middle of nowhere, or you know, a 1919 riot in Liverpool, or whatever. They're stupid scale that's impossible to do for the money, but it's the vision you have. But if you don't change that vision, they're never going to get made. You know, if those films are made, great. You know, people, I'm sure, would enjoy them now. I'm confident enough in the story that people would have enjoyed them, and, you know, award nominated, blah blah blah. But because I'm not compromising on that vision, they're not made. They don't exist. Yeah. And I think that the problem with filmmaking, you'll have filmmakers that, like, I have to make the perfect film. I have to make it. I'm not going to shoot this film until it's right. And guess what happens? They never make a film. And I think the film you make that you're 60% happy with, that you do every year, every 18 months, is better than the perfect film or the most ideal film you make every 5 years. Yeah. I personally believe. Because you need to have that constant developing as a director, because you might have to work with a different crew. You might be in a different scenario. You might want a film where you work with stunts. I know with not Clovich anymore, Family Ties, first time I'd worked with stunts. Yeah. And that was interesting and working out what to prioritize. And, you know, if I'm 100% honest, I don't think I prioritized certain things right. But, you know, you learn. But I wouldn't have learned that. I mean, the film is done, and, you know, I hope everyone enjoys it when it comes out online. But I can say that because I've made it and I've learned from that. But if you don't make films, or you're just constantly pontificating over this most perfect emotive idea, yes, if you can get it made and funded, it's a great film. But if you don't, you just sat there with this amazing script that you can never do. And sometimes, I think as filmmakers, we also have to learn to prioritize. I often hear directors talk about, I wrote this idea and then I sat on it for 10 years. I think Spielberg knew about Schindler's List in like the early 1980s, yeah, but wasn't ready to make it. Whether that was emotionally, financially, whatever, he wasn't ready to make it. And I think as filmmakers, sometimes with short films, we write it and this is the short film I have to make right now. Yeah. And we don't often think of short films in the same way as a director, as one of these auteur directors that we love thinks of the feature films. Like, I wrote that, but I'm not ready to do that now. It's okay to have these expansive ideas, but then also know what's realistic to do. Because, like I said, I'm really happy with those concepts of those 2 short films that I have. I've got plenty more that are more realistic to do. Yeah. So what should you do? Keep striving to get that one made and put all my energy and time and effort and not make anything else. And then 3, 4, 5, 6 years pass and you've not made anything. And then I finally get it made. Or chip away. Maybe this little idea that is a little bit of what I want from that other short film in there to, again, demonstrate my qualities as a filmmaker, and I can shoot, and I can at least prove. So maybe someone will say, oh, we want to do that short film. But again, it's missing the point of why are we making short films.
Mm-hmm.
They're meant to be a showcase of you. Now, well, I'm saying this, and it doesn't mean I'm saying we got to compromise and just put slop on the screen. I still think you need to try not to mail it in too much. Or when I say mail in, no, I don't think anyone goes to a short film thinking I'm going to mail it in. You got to give your all. You don't compromise in your ideas,
Yeah.
but maybe the scope has to change. Yeah. Maybe how you do it's got to change. Like you mentioned there, it's all fine and well getting an Alexa on anamorphics or whatever you used, great. But it's like, we want the camera to move in this certain way, and I've only got a gimbal that can take 5 pounds.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we can't do it because we can't get on the Alexa. That's an insane thing to say.
Yeah.
Just whack something on there and get the emotion, because the audience isn't going to go, wow, that was on an Alexa Mini with anamorphics. Great. The audience is going to go, oh, whoa, look how beautiful that look in their eyes. Mm-hmm. And I think something that gets caught in the discourse is, especially with our cameras, it's like that obsession that we have to do. It has to be this particular one. And I think, I always say the best short film camera is a small camera, or the camera you have access to,
Yeah.
But it's also a camera that can just do what you need to do in a quicker, lighter way, so you can express your ideas. You can express the vision more. Mm-hmm. And a camera does help. Or I should say, a camera can help. But then sometimes a camera, if you're too obsessed about that, or even certain lighting or certain techniques, can get in the way of what you're trying to do with your story.
Yeah.
So stories always got to come on top.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, the whole point, I always feel like, when I'm in a movie theater watching a film, then I should, best case scenario, I should forget where I am. And I should forget that I'm watching a film, and I should just be in. And, really that goes against everything, right? Because you shouldn't notice that all of a sudden you're shooting on, I don't know, IMAX. Not to put down IMAX, it's incredibly beautiful, but the best experience I've had in a cinema, and this was actually a bit of it was shot on IMAX, but it didn't matter because I didn't notice. Because the Dark Knight, I always go back to the Dark Knight, and I remember just being in that movie for the entire I think I looked up once and I was like, oh wow, I'm in a cinema. And for the rest of the movie, I was into that film. I was suckered in. And that's exactly what you want someone to be. You want someone to just be into your movie. Yeah. Like, as a director, you want someone to forget they're watching a film. Like, the whole reason I love film is escapism, right? I used to sit and I would watch movies. The first thing I learned to do as a child was put videos in the VCR player and press play. I would get up before anyone in my family and I would go downstairs and I would put a movie in and I would watch it. And, some of those movies I would just watch over and over again. It would end, I would rewind that tape and I would watch it again. And, that's because I just got lost in the movie. It felt like I was living that life, right? For a brief time, you become those characters and you experience what they experience. And that's the best case scenario. And that's exactly what you want as a director. As a director, you don't want the audience to go, all right, at this point, I want them to stop and realize that I shot it on a 50mm anamorphic lens. Or at this point, you want them to just forget for that time and just be totally engrossed in what you're giving them, like any art form, right? That's what you want. You want whoever's looking at it to be engrossed in it, to feel an emotion from it. Music, anything. That's what you want from what you're putting out there. So despite this being the Help I'm a Camera Nerd podcast, as directors, we want the audience to be engrossed. Now, you use these tools, you use that lens to make a person feel a certain way. And that's the reason for using it. That's, how does that audience, and that's why I use IMAX, right? Because it makes a person feel a certain way, Bigger sensor size means getting the camera closer and you feel closer to the actor, and that makes you feel a certain way. So there's, they're not just mindlessly used. It's like there's a reason that these directors use these tools to make the audience feel a certain way. And that is probably, I feel like, the only reason to use something is it's all for the audience benefit. It's for an emotion.
Yes.
That's the same with short film as long film, right? And that's why you can make short films and you don't necessarily have the budget, like you said, but you make it to practice these techniques. And you show your film to an audience and it, you get some feedback and you're like, right, okay, so that worked, that didn't work. How does that affect how I go forward and make the next film and or write the next script, or how does that inform how I work with actors next time and stuff like that. And that's what short film is kind of for. It's for learning that and adapting and getting better at doing it, basically.
Yeah, Mark, and I 100% agree. And I just wish more filmmakers prioritized it. I don't understand, if you've not made a feature film, I don't understand why you're not making short films. I know the argument, if you made a feature film, then why go back to shorts? I get that, unless you want to communicate an idea. I remember the reading about how F. Gary Gray was pitching to do the Wolverine Origins, and he spent $50,000 of his own money and made a short film of the style for the Wolverine Origins. And the studio, in the end, didn't go with him. I went with another director for that film, but they were so impressed that they gave him the $50,000 back and said, "We're not going to go with you, but we loved your idea." But what that did was it shows you it's still really useful, right? Even at that level, because he was trying to communicate. I haven't done a superhero film before, but this is what I would do, and this would look awesome. And I was explaining to someone yesterday, or a few weeks ago, I should say. Sorry, I was cut that bit out. Sorry. I was talking to someone a few weeks ago, and we were saying, they were asking me about why short film important, and I said, look, because you're always trying to communicate your ideas. There's a lot of short films that we'll never see. There's a lot of short films being made that are just for commissioners, people are spending thousands of pounds on to send to commissioners to say, or studio execs or whoever, funders, to say, this is what we can do, but I need more money to do it. With us, we see short films on YouTube at film festivals that have short film categories, I should say. But there's a whole other short films that we'll never see that are incredible, and that's helped that director win a job that they're doing that feature film. I'd be really interested to see, for instance, Gareth Edwards and The Creator. Well, Gareth Edwards has got a track record, so maybe that's a bad example. But, you'd imagine, I've done this amazing short film. Here it is. I've not released a festival, but I really want funding for it. I know that's something I wanted to do with the film that I'm developing about the 1919 riots. I keep plugging it in this podcast. I'm gonna keep
plug away.
So people can say, "Oh, we want to hear more about this project." Like, "Oh, email me. I need about $20,000 to do it." But like, my intention, obviously, I wanted to make a really cool short film, but the story is a feature film story. It's a feature length story. But I had never done a period drama, and a period drama that had that kind of scale or even action. So how are you going to go from making a film about, a coming of age drama about a boy playing basketball who's from another country to a World War I, post-World War I gritty drama about racial tensions? Mm-hmm. It's like it's a massive stretch for someone to say, "Oh, I'll trust you and give you $500,000 or two or more than that, a few million to make a film like this because we like the idea." Even if they like the idea, they might just option it and take that idea from you and give it to another experienced director, which is how the industry works, right? But I think it's important to keep on making these short films, keep on making the short films, but don't be so precious. Yes, about how you make it sometimes. I know I'm a stickler for, I want everything to do I want to do it all properly. I want to get a bigger crew. I want to make sure I have all the job roles so it's a smooth running production. But you don't always have the budget for that. No. When you self-fund your films, that's like impossible to do every time. And you if you have some incredibly generous collaborators that say, "Okay, yeah, sure, we'll do it for expenses." I always appreciate that, but it's not sustainable to do that every time. Sometimes you got to learn to do something yourself or just scale it back.
Yeah.
What can I do myself? How can I be like Robert Rodriguez and just being like, what is around me? Let me just make a film using that.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes as a filmmaker, you've got to just get back to basics and just be like, I need to just practice this and I need to just shoot this short film.
Yeah.
Because, or even feature film if you can extend that out like that. Because again, that practice and that repetition is what will refine you as a filmmaker. Scripts are great, treatments are great, but at some point you got to make the darn thing.
Yeah.
And you can be good at like writing things down and communicating it with text, but be terrible at that point with communicating it visually. And that's why making these short films, doing something that's from your head to screen, is so important.
Yeah.
Because it gives you confidence in being able to do that, and it gives you more confidence in being able to communicate your ideas and show your creativity and your ability.
Yeah, and I mean there are more, like there's always the option to crowdfund as well. You can crowdfund, and both myself and you have crowdfunded short films before. And
Yes.
But still, in order to get crowdfunding, you're probably going to need some kind of examples to show in order to motivate people to trust you. It's exactly the same as going to a studio. You still need those examples of like, hey, I've done this before, here's the stuff I've done before, now I want to do this, help fund this short film or maybe even a feature film. So it's never wasted, right? It's like the point of short films is to get experience, and at the end of it you come out with a short film that you have for life, that you can at least take to people, cut into a reel of some kind and show people it's like a CV. It's like a digital movie CV, basically.
100%.
So that's the 100%. Point of short film. It's to build that CV. I haven't updated my CV in years because the reality of the work we do and how we get work is I send them my show reel and I'm like, hey, because ultimately, like, I don't work on a piece of paper, I work on a camera. So you don't want to see a document with words on it. You want to see the images that I capture and how I shoot and what the footage looks like. And that's the same for a director. You do a show reel and you put examples of scenes that you've done in there and show the different genres you've covered. You show the different budgets you've had, because that's a big deal too, like showing that you've worked with a lot of people, where it looks like the crew's been big, boasts confidence for people who are looking to employ you or give you money. So the thing about short film is it's never a waste, or very rarely is it a waste. Some people shoot films and never finish them, and they've probably got, they'll have their reasons for doing that. I always feel like if I've shot it, the hard part is done. So I want to finish it just because ultimately I'll get some shots out of it and that'll go into my reel, and it'll, at least give the impression that there's varied projects there. So, I would always tell people to at least finish it, even if you don't want to submit it to anything and you don't want to put it anywhere, just because it's never a waste, I think. And I totally understand, sometimes you get to the end of a project and you're not happy with it. And I do sympathize with that, and it can be quite demoralizing, but it's never a waste if you can just look at it from the point of view of what you've learned, and you will have learned. We always learn, especially if we're unhappy with something. You can look back and decide or figure out why that is. And so that's the point of short film, is to build that show reel of work that you've done, and that can go on to encourage people to work with you as well. It doesn't just end at trying to get people to give you money.
Yeah.
It motivates other people to be like, oh wow, that looks cool. This looks like a person I'd like to work with. Like, so it's
exactly,
there's no end to the kind of the benefit of doing it and what it teaches you going forward.
You have to think, would you just trust someone who sent you an email and saying, I can do this, give me money, or work on this?
No.
You wouldn't do it. I like to think I'm a nice person that people like being around. I don't know. Shouldn't talk about yourself in that way, but it's like I'd like to think that, but people don't know me. They don't. Why should you trust me? I'm random guy saying I want to make a film. Am I really gonna see it through? You shouldn't trust me. But what you should trust is my track record.
Yeah.
You should trust what I've done. You should look at what I've done and go, okay, and, you know, if you don't like it, that's fair. But you can't deny that this person has experience and they know how to make that type of film. You don't have to like it,
Yeah.
but you can, you know, people can trust you and see you're going to make a film through. And I think I'd always, there's times that, especially when you shoot a short film, and in the next few weeks we're going to go into a bit more about the process of making films, but sometimes you get it in post and you go, I didn't get what I thought I would, or it's not as dynamic, or maybe you feel, man, I really should have pushed the boat out a little bit more. You know, that's natural.
Yeah.
But always see it through. Always see it through. You know, I know there's an idea that you want to limit how much of your work you show, because if some of it's not very good, people will judge you on it. I understand that. I don't agree with it,
Nope.
but I understand why people feel that. I don't agree with it. I think each project has its own soul. Each project has its own history and context, and you can't really judge something at the time. You got to see how it lives and grows. You know, I mean, Diembe, you know, my film, I always plug, you know, it's the biggest film I've made so far. I've had bigger budget so far, but it's the most expansive. And it's made in 2015. We finished it. We wrapped in 2016 we wrapped 2015, finished post early 2016. Sent to festivals. Had a good run, but it was too long, right? But I remember screening as part of a collective I'm in, as part of a Black History Month thing, and people were saying, "Oh wow, this story about immigration." It's still like, I really enjoyed it. And yes, it's one person, and you think, you know, I would love thousands of people to see it, but they'll say, "Oh, that film is really impactful." I got a random message from a German film festival that says, you know, we want to teach our children more about inclusion and other cultures. Can we screen your film? It exists. It takes on its own life after you're finished with it. And it's almost, you've made it. Yes, you can want to hold bits back. Yes, you have the desire to, oh no, it's not exactly what my auteur brain had. I get all that. And I know filmmakers who feel that way, but I disagree. Let the audience decide. Let the audience decide. If I said I was 100% happy with all my films, I'd be lying to you.
Of course.
These things I'd be like, I wish we did that. Oh, why didn't we get this angle? Oh, I really wish we had a gimbal there or a steady cam and walked into the water. Blah, blah, blah. You think all these things, but you know, let the audience judge your movie. Let the audience be the ones who are because you know what you as a filmmaker and as someone who's deeply critical of yourself, you may think, oh, that's garbage. What have I done this? I've wasted all this money. Someone watches that, oh, I really enjoyed that. Yeah, I really liked how that happened. So it's not for you. It's almost, you make your film for yourself, but once it's finished, it becomes for the audience.
It does. Yeah. And it's, you know what? One film that I put on YouTube that's done particularly well, A Bite to Eat, I love reading the comments. Like, I love it. I love reading what people think and the bits that they connect with. And, you know, when you go to a film festival, when someone laughs at the right bit, or even a bit that you didn't intend, and you're like, oh wow, that bit's connected with people, and that's why you do it. Like, that is why you do it, in my opinion. That's why anyone becomes a director. You know, like you said, that film, you make that film and then it goes off and it becomes the people's, and it's not yours anymore. It's, you know, what people think of it, and like the right message, or what, if they've got that bit correct and stuff, it doesn't matter, because really, like, it's whatever a person reads into it, and maybe that wasn't what you intended, but it doesn't make it wrong. It's like the whole point of film is that it's out there for people to interpret how they want to interpret. And it's nice when someone interprets something different, maybe to how you intended it. Maybe that's something you never considered as a director, that you didn't think about. And I love hearing it. I love reading it. And I love, like, you know, I'm not saying I love people to come up and congratulate me about how great the film is, but it's almost like, you know, especially on YouTube, when people can write comments and they don't know if you're the director reading it or not, but I am, and I'm reading it, and I'm enjoying it, and I love just seeing the little things that people got from it. And ultimately that's why you do it, right? Because it always comes back to that connection. And I put on a film and watched it 5 times in one day because I connected with it, and now I'm doing that for other people, and maybe they're not watching my film 5 times in a row, but they're watching it and they're connecting with it. And that's like, that is the reason that we do it. We make these films to give back what we got out of it. We go back to that bit in Forrest Gump that made you sad, and you do a bit in your film and it makes someone sad, and it gets that connection. And I still today, I watch films and I'm like, films connect with me in a really emotional way, and I'll just be like, wow, I want to make someone feel like that. And they're not always the films that I necessarily feel like I would want to make, but you just watch it and you're like, whew, something about that got me in the feelies, and and it reminds me why I want to do this, and like what my ultimate goal is to make something, sit back in that cinema. I remember the story of Steven Spielberg, and he made Jaws, and he was so like terrified of what people would think that he couldn't watch the movie. And maybe this isn't true, but he couldn't watch the movie, and he went out and he stood in the foyer and he just waited there. Apparently someone ran out into the foyer just after the movie started, and he was like, oh no, they hate it. And that person vomited on the floor, and he was like, nice, I've got him. But it's like, I think when people just connect to something that you've done, it's like, that is the ultimate satisfaction. And it goes all, and you get that from short films, and you get that from feature films, and that's the thing that's cohesive between them. It's like, you get that same satisfaction. It's probably just smaller, maybe. I don't know, because I've not made a feature film, but I imagine when you make that big feature film and it goes to the cinema and you have, millions of people watching it, I can't even imagine what that buzz is like, because I get a buzz from one person commenting on YouTube. So it's like, it
must be incredible, man.
Yeah.
One day. You just got to keep it. The only way you get there, unless you've got an incredibly fortunate situation, you just got to keep making stuff.
Yep.
You got to keep making stuff. You got to keep making it, Don't be a filmmaker that doesn't make films.
Yeah.
Because there's no point. And also remember to watch films.
Yeah.
I know.
Don't forget why you do this, why you want to do this, right? Because I love film, right? Some people, maybe, I think it's a status thing, but ultimately for me it's because I want to repay that, what I've had from it, and because I love it. And it's like you said, it's the medium that I go to entertain me the most. Like, it's what I give the most time to, watching films, series now as well, because series have become almost like film in this day and age. I mean, it's almost the same. So there's nothing I love more.
It's maybe gone too much the other way now.
Maybe
gone too much. That's another debate for another day.
Is.
But I think it's film versus TV, and I do miss that. I will say, and I know we gotta wrap up now, but like I will say, we don't get it now as much, because with the internet, social media, everything's overhyped, underhyped, then overhyped, over exaggerated. You lose the event. We both talk about our Dark Knight several times a podcast. But I just remember the feeling I had watching the I Am Legend film just so we could see the IMAX teaser to the Dark Knight. I'll never forget. Obviously, I Am Legend was a great film, or a good film. I really enjoyed it. I just want to, I really liked it. But you go and we don't have that anymore. And I feel we've lost that sense of cinema a little bit, and the event of it all, or even how people felt going to see The Matrix. I was too young to watch it at cinema.
Yeah.
My brothers came back with this thing is crazy. Whoa, what is that? They couldn't. And now, because everything's spoilered and whatever else, and there's reactions, you don't even feel like you're allowed to have your own thoughts before someone on social media says, "Oh, I didn't like that," and it's like, well, I liked it, but that's a separate subject for another day. But again, we got it. That's why we love making movies. We got to still make movies, short movies, and yeah, take it from there.
All right,
But,
so I'm going to wrap us up, and I'm also going to mention an exciting thing that's coming up. Now, it's going to probably be hopefully in the next few weeks, but we're doing a special edition of the podcast. We're going to do a video game edition. Help, I'm a video game nerd.
oh yeah.
Now,
yeah.
me and Anderson, our friendship, I would say grew from not only our love of films, but our love of video games. And those two things are intertwined, right? Because video games are so cinematic and for us, it was about almost living those stories and having an impact on those stories. The same feeling you get from film, but having the ability to manipulate it and experience it firsthand. So we're going to be doing a special video game edition coming up. So remember to like and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss that episode. And maybe going forward we'll think of some other special edition episodes, but yeah, I'm super excited about that. I know we're going to have a lot to talk about. So yeah, make sure to like, subscribe, keep watching. Thanks for watching if you've got this far. What is this, episode 12 now? I think episode 12 we're on.
Yeah, 12, yeah.
It's been a fun journey where we'll do a special edition for episode 50, I think, and then 100. We'll get there. So thanks for watching, guys. Yeah, don't forget again to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one. Stay shooting.